Hi students, I hope all of you had good health and you have enjoyed well this summer vacation or summer break with your family and have studied a little bit, I hope so. So before beginning with chapter 3, that is the cell, I would like to discuss the assignment question answer which I had already given you before the summer break. Let me discuss one by one. The first question which I had given you was define germination. Now what is germination, students? And as I had already explained, the process by which an embryo within the seed becomes active and grow into a young plant is called germination. My next question was, what are the two types of germination and explain them? The two types of germination are apigeal germination and hypogeal germination. Now, my next question was, explain the two types of germination. The first one is apigeal germination. Now, what is apigeal germination? It is a kind of germination where cotyledons are pushed above the soil by elongation of epicotyle earlier than hypocotyle. As I was showing you in my previous video that hypocotyle elongates earlier. That means it is pushing the cotyledon above it so that it comes up the soil, and this is what apigeal germination is. Epi means above the soil. Now hypogeal germination, what is it? It is a kind of germination where cotyledons remains underground, and this is due to elongation of epicotyle earlier than hypocotyle. What does it mean? That means since epicotyle means the part above the cotyledon is growing earlier, that is why cotyledon remains underground. Next is differentiate between apigeal and hypogeal germination. Now in case of apigeal germination, what is the fate of cotyledon? Let us see. Cotyledons are pushed above the soil, whereas in case of hypogeal germination, the cotyledons remains in the ground. Next, in apigeal germination, why this cotyledons are pushed above or remains below the ground? The reason is, in case of apigeal germination, hypocotyle elongates faster than epicotyle, whereas in case of hypogeal germination, epicotyle elongates earlier than hypocotyle. So students, now I already told you, hypocotyle means the region of the embryonic axis towards the radicle, and epicotyle means the region of embryonic axis towards the plumule. So this elongates faster, that is why. Next, in apigeal germination, the example is bean, tamarind, whereas in case of hypogeal germination, the example is maize, pea, and so on. My next question was, what are the three conditions necessary for germination? And as I have already told you, the three conditions are water. We already know that the seeds absorb water. Now, what is the importance of water? Actually, water helps in bursting the seed coat and helps in carrying on the enzymatic reaction. So, the first point will be water. Next point is oxygen. Oxygen is required for what? As I told you, it helps in breaking down the food particle and generate energy, so required for growth and development of the seedling. Next is optimum temperature. It is very important. Optimum temperature, if the optimum temperature is not there, then the seed will not germinate. My next question was, I had given you an experimental setup of 3 bean seed experiment, and based on that experimental setup, I have given you some questions to write. The first question which I had given is, what are the factors so being studied over here? Now the factors so being studied over here are water, oxygen, optimum temperature. As you can see, students, in your question from assignment, that 3 seeds of bean were given. One seed was completely immersed within the water, that is seed C. Seed B, which was actually half outside the water and half dipped inside the water. And there was a seed A, which was completely above the surface of water and was completely in air. That means it was not receiving any water. So what we see? We see after few days, seed A will germinate, seed A will not germinate, seed B will germinate, means it will show germination, and seed C, it will also not germinate. Okay. Next question, let us see. My next question was, explain your observation. Means in the previous answer, we mentioned about what do we see after few days in the experimental setup, what changes we see. Now we will be explaining actually what and why we see that. Now we see in case of seed A, it will not germinate. Why it will not germinate? Because it is not receiving moisture. Since it is above the surface of the water, so it will not be receiving any air, and as a result it will not germinate. Next is seed B. It is half inside the water and half outside in the air. Now it is receiving both air, water as well as the optimum temperature, so required for germination. So it will start germinating. And in case of C, since we know bean seed is not a hydrophytic plant, so when we are putting that seed inside water, the oxygen supply will be cut off, and as a result it will not germinate. So in case of seed C, since seed does not receive air, so it will not germinate. My last question was, how oxygen and water is essential for germination of seed. Now in case of oxygen, it mainly helps in releasing energy by respiration. Now how it is helping in helping by releasing energy? Actually the energies are required for development of the embryo, which is present inside the seed, is brought about by this oxygen. It actually breaks down the food material and releases energy by means of respiration. And in case of water, as we know, through micropyle water enters. So what happens after water enters through the micropyle? The seed coat bursts and slowly we see the radical portion comes out. And also the water helps in carrying out the enzymatic reaction so that it occurs inside the cell. Okay, and at last the temperature which is required for development of this particular seed is 35 to 40 degrees Celsius. And finally, these factors help in development and growth of the embryo which is present inside the seed. So now let us begin with chapter 3, that is the cell. But before moving on to this topic cell, I would like to show you an instrument. You see, I can show you one instrument which I have drawn over here. Now this is known as a compound microscope. Now the question is, what is a microscope and why I have drawn it on the board? Now you see what you can see over here, what I have drawn. Over here I have drawn a particular leaf. Next I have drawn an organ like liver. I have drawn an organ like heart. Now what I have done is, I have taken a small section from this part and I will be placing the part on this particular stand over here. this particular stand over here, and this particular stand is known as stage. This is known as stage, where I will just scrap off a little portion from this organs like leaf of plant, liver of animal, and heart of again animal, and one by one I will be keeping those things on this particular stage. Now when I just turn this particular lens, this top portion lens is known as the eyepiece, where I will be placing my eyes, and this three lens you can see over here, this three lens is known as the low power objective lens. Now when I will place the scrapings on this stage, and I will put my eye over here and adjust the magnification power by screwing this particular this screwing thing, I will see the particular organs are made up of tiny compartments like this, which I have already drawn. That means all organs which we see around us or inside our body are made up of tiny compartments like this, which is not at all visible to our eyes. So these tiny compartments which actually makes up the leaves, the liver, the heart, or many other organs, or rather a complete organism, even the human being from top to toe are made up of these tiny compartments which is known as cell. So today we will be beginning with our chapter, that is the cell. Now let us learn about two scientists. One is Antony van Leeuwenhoek, another is Robert Hooke. Now Antony van Leeuwenhoek, he was the first to make simple microscope using a biconvex lens. Biconvex lens, like you see in case of magnifying glass, you use magnifying glass in your home, or you can buy it from a shop. With that particular lens, he first made the simple microscope and observed the blood cell of frog. And you see, I have already drawn it on the board. Now blood cell of human also looked like a simple tiny compartment like structure. Rather, it was having a honeycomb shape. Honeycomb shape means have you ever seen the beehive? The beehive having small compartment like structures, just simply like our flat system. Similarly, Antony van Leeuwenhoek observed the red blood cell and it looked like this. After Antony van Leeuwenhoek, the person who came was Robert Hooke. Now Robert Hooke, he actually made a more powerful microscope which consisted of two biconvex lenses. Okay, that means Antony van Leeuwenhoek made a simple microscope and Robert Hooke made a more powerful microscope. And after he visualized the dead corpse cell or any kind of scrapings he took and visualized it under that microscope, he saw that each and every organism, each and every organ of our body is made up of tiny compartments which he called and named as cell. So he was the first to coin the term cell. Next is some terminology related with cell. You can see over here On the left hand side, I have drawn a magnified view of cell, and based on this, I will be discussing the different terminology that is associated with cell. Now cell, it is the basic structural and functional unit of all living organism. I repeat, it is the basic structural and functional unit of all living organism. Now you see, I have drawn a diagram below. You see, I have taken a section of leaf, and I am showing you the magnified view as it will appear within the microscope. This view I am showing you. Now you see this leaf, they are made up of tiny compartments like this, and this is known as the cell. That means the entire leaf, it is formed of this small tiny compartments, and that means this compartments is actually forming the structural unit of this particular leaf. Now this way we understand that cell is the basic structural unit of life. The next thing is how cell is the functional unit of life. Now you see, I have shown green dots within the cell. If you can view, you see I have drawn green dots within the cell. Now this green dots represents the chlorophyll. We have already read about chlorophyll in chapter 1, the leaf. Now what is the function of chlorophyll? Actually, chlorophyll helps in trapping the solar energy so that it can combine carbon dioxide with water so that we get food as well as oxygen. Now this entire process which I have shown, this is known as photosynthesis. That means these tiny cells are helping in performing the function of the cell also, function of the leaf also. That means on one hand, it is forming the entire structure of this leaf. Okay, and on the other hand, each of them are contributing towards the function of photosynthesis so that the leaf in general can perform the overall function of photosynthesis, that is to prepare food. You can take some other examples also, students, like you can take the example of root cells also. As I discussed, the root consists of unicellular root hair cell. Again, that means root will be made up of cells like this. Means instead of this leaf, you can take example of root also. If you take a scraping of that root and view it under the microscope, you will see the same tiny structures are found over there. That means again in case of root also, it is made up of tiny compartments called cell. And also that tiny compartments, like in case of leaf, it is helping in functioning by means of photosynthesis. While in case of root, it will help in absorption of water and mineral. Now, this is the definition of cell, and this is why cell is known as the structural and functional unit of all living organisms. Next is cytology. Now, what is cytology? It is the branch of biology that deals with the study of cells. Means what kind of cells are present within an organ, how it functions, what are the different components that are found within a cell. This is known as cytology. Next is protoplasm. What is protoplasm? A living substance of cell made up of cytoplasm and nucleus. Now you see, students, on the left hand side I have drawn a magnified view of a cell. Okay. Now this magnified view consists of a center round portion. You see the round portion. Okay. This is known as the nucleus, and the entire, you can see this dotted structure which is covering the entire cell. This is known as the cytoplasm. That means nucleus plus cytoplasm will be equal to protoplasm. Again, I am saying that nucleus plus cytoplasm equals to protoplasm. So protoplasm means living substance of cell that is made up of cytoplasm and nucleus. Next, let us learn about the different types of cell shape that may exist in nature. Now, shape of cell may vary from organism to organism and from organ to organ. Don't only make a pre-assumption that cells are only like rounded structure. It may be of many shape and sizes. So let us discuss one by one. First is the shape of cell may be spherical. Spherical, like in case of red blood cell, I have already drawn on the board. You can see. Okay. Now the shape of red blood cell is spherical like this, so that it can easily pass through the blood capillaries. Now, red blood cell is one of the smallest cell which is found on the human body, and it is round, this spherical in shape, so that it can easily pass through the blood capillaries. Next is oval shaped cell like Chlamydomonas. Now, Chlamydomonas, it's a organism only. Now, there may be two types of organism, like organism which are made up of only one cell. Like we can see, Chlamydomonas itself is made up of one cell and it is oval in shape. So, Chlamydomonas is an example of unicellular algae. Next is Spirogyra. Cylindrical shaped cell is of Spirogyra. You see, if we just see it in with our just we see like that within microscope, what we will see, it is having a long ribbon like shape, and we can't even imagine also that shape of cell can be like this. But yes, shape of cell can be like this also. It may be in the shape of cylindrical shape also, like this ribbon like. An example of such cylindrical cell is Spirogyra. Shape of cell may be of amoeboid type also. Amoeboid means, you see, the cell is not actually having any shape. It is having irregular shape. This type of example of amoeboid shaped cell is amoeba. Apart from amoeba, the white blood cell of our body is also having this amoeboid shape. Okay. Now cells may be of cubical shape also. Like I have already drawn it on the board. If we take a scrapping of leaf cells, we will see that it is having a cubical shape. I have drawn it on the right hand side. I hope you all can see it. Okay. So cells of leaf is having cubical shape. And below you see, I have drawn a picture of a slipper shaped cell. It is of Paramoecium. Now Paramoecium is having a slipper like shape. So many varied shape of cell can be seen. Now next I will be showing you one interesting fact. Okay. Now students, you can see I have kept an egg over here. Now this egg is also a kind of cell, students. Yes students, egg is also a cell, and remember, the only cell which we can see without the use of microscope, that means we can see it with our naked eyes, it is the egg cell. And the largest cell which we find in the whole world is of a ostrich egg. Now the thing which I am showing you over here is a poultry egg. Okay. Now this is also a cell, but this cell is visible to the naked eye. But the ostrich egg, it is also visible to the naked eye since it is one of the largest cell. But cells like this, which I have already drawn on the board, like the cells which are found within the leaf, cells like of Paramoecium, all these cells are not visible with our naked eye. So we require an instrument which is known as microscope. Next is, after we understood about the concept that cells may be of varied shape, we also came to the conclusion that cell may have independent existence or may not have independent existence. Now, organisms which are made up of only one cell, that means no more cells are present, that means this single cell is having an independent existence. Such type of organism is known as unicellular organism. That means organism which are made up of only single cell is known as unicellular organism. So the diagram which I have drawn over here is of Chlamydomonas. Now Chlamydomonas is an example of a unicellular organism. The entire body is made up of one cell, and as a result Chlamydomonas is not visible to our naked eye, and we require a microscope to see this particular organism. Next is, on our right hand side I have drawn a diagram of a fish. Now this fish, when we take a scraping of a fish and put it under a microscope, we will see it is made up of millions tiny compartments like this, million tiny compartments like this. That means this particular fish is made up of so many cells. Now, organism which is made up of many cells, it may be in billion, it may be in trillion, such type of organism is known as multicellular organism. That means unicellular organisms example may be Chlamydomonas, Paramoecium, amoeba, so on. And multicellular organisms example is fish, human being, and so on. But please don't write, if a question is asked that give example of unicellular organism, don't write cell. You have to mention the specific example of cell, like Chlamydomonas and all. Like this cells of fish cannot have an independent existence. That is why they are multicellular organism. Means they are present within the organism's body. But this Chlamydomonas have a independent existence. So I hope you are cleared with this concept of unicellular organism and multicellular organism. Next is the cell theory. Cell theory, it was proposed by three scientists. This is Sladen, Swan, Virchow. Now Sladen, Swan and Virchow postulated 3 points within this cell theory. The first point is, every living organism is made up of one or many cells. As I have already discussed with you about unicellular and multicellular organism, so it must be clear to you. Next is, cell is the structural functional unit of all living organism. This also I explained you that with that leaf cross section, that I took some leaf, scrapping from leaves, and shown you that particular cells, means it is made up of tiny compartments called cell. So at the base level, cell forms the structure of all organ and all living organism. Similarly, since all the cells are together working as a unit, like I showed you for photosynthesis, all together are forming as a single unit and performing the function of photosynthesis. So that is why it formed the functional unit of living organism. And the last part is, all cells arise from pre-existing cell. This means all cells which are coming should be coming from a pre-existing cells. That means the previous cells undergoes this division and 2 new cells are coming out. Again, these 2 new cells will be dividing and giving rise to 4 more cells. I am drawing it on the board. 1 minute. So I have drawn also on the board. You see, that means from one cell, so many cells are developing, and this is why it is said that all cells arise from pre-existing cell. This cell theory is very important. You need to learn it very well, understand very well, and it is very important for your exam. So thank you, students, today up to this. So next we will be meeting you in the next video. Thank you, students, for listening.